We watched Cowspiracy and Earthlings, and basically overnight we went from Soul's Steakhouse to Soul's Vegan Restaurant.
Wow, that's crazy.
Which
that's cool.
was pretty scary because we know nothing about vegan food.
Very strange that I have a large nose, and I'll tell you why.
I guess you're privileged to have a big nose then, because you don't live in harsh conditions.
The habanero one? Holy fuck, dude. You know, maybe I've been treating this bike as some sort of parkour bike when really it's just a...
I once came face to face with a wild rhinoceros. That was pretty crazy.
I got stung by a bee once.
Welcome back to the Burning Boat Show, everyone.
Whoop whoop!
We've got some exciting guests today, but before I introduce them, I just wanted to say thank you to our sponsors on Patreon. If you want to help out this podcast, you can go to the link below and sponsor us there. Today, we actually have two of our... Well, I think it's like you guys are friends, but you're also clients.
Yeah.
You are actually two of our first clients that we ever had when we started our production company here in Copenhagen. And you guys are from the vegan restaurant Souls. So our viewers will probably have seen some of the stuff we've made.
Yeah, we've done about
you guys.
8 videos for you guys, I think.
Yeah, and
it's a lot.
I just wanted to say before we start that we really appreciate working with you guys. I think you allow us to be the most have the most freedom creatively. When we work with other companies, it's also often that we're like limited to having to do something very specific to what they do, and it's been like a really fun experience being able to kind of like have someone go along with some of our crazy ideas, which has been very useful for us, and also learning kind of like what we're capable of. So we've really enjoyed working with you guys over the past like year and a half now, I think. But I think I want to just get to have you guys say a little bit about who you are and what you do. So maybe in like 60 seconds roughly, could you give like a quick fire of who you each are? Take turns maybe.
Super cool. Go, Jen.
Oh,
Jen,
no,
can
you
start.
start.
And not even within Souls, just like you as a person.
Who you are.
Right.
Holy shit, you want
Yeah.
me to say that in a minute?
Yeah.
All right, well, yeah, I'm Jen. Let's just start with Souls. I work there as kind of a brand manager. So kind of oversee what happens online, offline in terms of how we're presenting ourselves and visually and artistically. And then in my spare time, I'm kind of the glue of a lot of other things. Something as simple as organizing the office downstairs, or I don't know, coming up with some cool ways to upcycle certain things or elements in the restaurant. In my spare time, I don't really know. When I get a chance, I try and do something outdoorsy or active or
You guys are
anything
looking
to
very
do with
tan.
animals.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just in Egypt.
Surfing holiday.
Jeez.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't super surfing, but we did a little bit of wakeboarding, which was fun.
Oh,
Nice.
So yeah, just try to stay active and be in nature and be around animals. That's
Nice.
where I'm happiest. I
Where are you
think.
from?
Born in Estonia and Russian parents, but international schools, so I don't really feel like I'm from anywhere.
Same. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Must be a
it's kind
curse
nice
of the
though.
international school.
A curse?
Yeah.
I don't know. I find it more of a blessing. Like I
Same,
think it
I would
makes
say
you
that.
more
Very
open.
optimistic.
I like it kind of feeling like I can kind of be at home multiple places.
For
It's not like
sure.
one home.
And I
You
think
don't
it
feel like
just
that?
makes you a bit less judgmental or something.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a curse, but I've definitely struggled with trying to identify like where's home
Yeah.
or where's my community, where do I belong?
Yeah.
Those sort of questions.
Well, I definitely have that
You
as
know.
well. Like, who the hell am I?
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
but I think you'd have that regardless of,
Yeah,
you know, whether you felt like you were from somewhere or not.
that's true.
I don't know. That's just what I think.
Jason, 60 seconds from you.
Alrighty. So I'm one of the 2 owners of Souls. The other one's busy at work, so he couldn't come today. I'm Australian. We're both Australian, actually. We've been best mates for 15 years. Since as soon as we come here, been in lots of fights and all sorts of things together. So we're basically like brothers. A lot of people say you can't go into business together, but we decided to stick through it and get there. But I'm a typical Australian surfer, I guess, but ended up in Denmark, and now I don't have spare time since Souls.
Yeah.
I work 80 hours a week, and I've been doing that for 4 years.
Wow.
And that's basically pretty well my life, except for a quick trip to Egypt or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the last 4 years has just been full on, and Denmark's probably the best place to do it because the weather's so shit most of the time. There's not much else to do, so it makes it a lot easier to work over here, that's for sure.
Okay.
Definitely.
What made you come to Denmark?
I was traveling the world, and then there was obviously a girl here in the beginning. Sorry. Like, should I bring that up?
No.
There was. She's long gone. And then I just got a good job. She's way out. I got a good job with Sticks and Sushi. Okay. And then we were probably going to leave, but saw a gap in the market, and we were going to open something else other than Souls, but then it ended up being a vegan restaurant. And now I'm here for a long time, I guess.
Were you vegan before you opened the restaurant?
No. So the reason that it was going to be called Soul's Steakhouse, which a lot of people don't know. So
this is amazing.
6 months before, we watched Cowspiracy and Earthlings, and basically overnight we went from Soul's Steakhouse to Soul's Vegan Restaurant.
Wow, that's crazy.
Which
that's cool.
was pretty scary because we know nothing about vegan food. We're Australians. We can cook barbecues and stuff like that.
I think there was a couple of other things leading up to it as well. Like we were in India for a while. I can't remember if it was before or after we watched the documentaries, but we were in this town called Rishikesh, which is like a yoga town. Mm-hmm. And well, I mean, cows are sacred all over India, but in that town, they were roaming free. So you would see these creatures up close. You would see their beautiful eyes, like how long their eyelashes are. And I don't know, I think like once it's part of like your everyday life, you react to it different. Like you become a lot more empathetic than, obviously in Denmark, you don't really see cows roaming the streets everywhere. You don't relate to it the same way. Yeah, it's very hidden or behind doors. I mean, obviously you can go to a farm or whatever and see it, but it's not part of day to day. So it was a bit of that, and then seeing those documentaries. Yeah,
there was a bit of everything, and then I mean, it was super scary. We didn't know anything about vegan food, and luckily we had a good vegan chef in the beginning. But we just wanted to do our part. It wasn't about us. It wasn't about the money and things like that. It was more about doing something for the planet, and it's just someone had to do something, and we're like, fuck it, it's got to be us. Let's give it a go. And it's been super hard, but we're getting there now. So it's starting to be the right moves that we made. So yeah, it's good.
Is there a story behind the name Souls?
Actually, I was on the toilet. we were at Torvaldhanen, however you say that.
Torvaldhanen.
And Matt and Jen were actually up. We were sitting there just going through name after name. And I was down on the toilet. And I messaged Matt and I'm like, Souls. And then I came back up and the three of us were like, Souls, like that works. And then it got stuck. But we went crazy. Once we said Souls, we're like the owner of souls. We own people's souls. And then we thought of all sorts of stuff like, with the devil and Jesus and whatever. And
what were some of the other names, if you remember?
I think we were also deliberating soulmates. Like, I don't know, we added the mates part to it.
I like that. A little Australian flair.
Yeah, with the Aussie part.
Mates.
Many meanings.
Yeah, but then it felt a bit too long. And then I think homemate was kind of making their introduction around that time as well. So we were like, I think so. I can't remember.
But we got a lot of shit. A lot of people were like, don't call it that. Especially my mates were just like, that's terrible.
What, Souls?
Yeah. And then in the end, it was just like, you know what? It's just a name. You can call it shit. Yeah. And you advertise it like, this is anything but shit. This is the best shit. This is cool shit. It's just what you do with the name. We spent a long time on it, actually. And I think it's more about what you actually do with it later.
Yeah, I think so too.
So, but Souls it worked, like Soldiers and Solution, and that was just luck. We didn't think of that.
Yeah.
We were just like, this is a cool name.
Make it work.
It's easy.
Like you said, you make
exactly.
For Danes, it was a bit difficult because they would say
Sauce.
Sauce. Sauce.
Not sauce. Souls.
What? I guess like we need to make a soul sauce.
Yeah.
It's funny when we were trying to figure out a name for my son, we were really trying to think of something that Danish people could say as well, because I did not want like my Danish side of the family not being able to say whatever name we came up with. So Oscar
what name
was
did
a very
you come up with?
Oscar. Very easy to say.
Yeah, you can get it.
Ah,
Makes sense.
Yeah.
it does.
I think we had the same with our logo. We were so obsessed about like having a good logo, trying to do all these iterations. And at one point we kind of went, let's just go with this.
Yeah.
And at some point it's going to be the thing where it's been around long enough that then it means something to you, and then it's recognizable. And it's sort of this question of like, is it recognizable can you know that before you've made the logo? Because some logos like Amazon or something, obviously you recognize now and everything, but it's also like when it first came out, is that the best idea ever, or is it just gains recognition? I just read about that,
and they didn't name it because of they named it Amazon because they started out with books, and like there's a lot of trees in the Amazon, so they were like, oh, we'll call it that because we're saving the Amazon by having no, wait, that didn't quite.
I was gonna say they're cutting down trees.
No, not saving the Amazon, but like, yeah, the opposite of that. Basically, it had nothing to do with
we're destroying the Amazon.
Yeah. Digging myself a grave here a little bit. But now it's like, oh, it's so obvious. Amazon is full of everything, anything you can ever think of.
And the name, the logo's from A to Z.
Yeah. Also not part of the.
It's a little smile as well.
Exactly.
It's all stuff they've added to it once they're like, oh, this is where we're going with the business.
Right.
I think isn't there like a tendency for like new businesses or startups to focus a lot on like little details like that, wanting to make it perfect, have the perfect website, perfect little business cards, the name is perfect, everything like, but you don't know. It's like it doesn't really matter.
Make a decision.
Yeah, in the beginning we had the same. We still don't have a logo. It's just the name because it was a fork, and then now anyone vegan uses a fork, so we ended up stopping it. But in the beginning, we were like, all of our staff, we're going to send them to the
Gotcha.
We're like, we're going to send them to the gym and all sorts of things.
Well, we actually had staff get a tattoo of was it 2 or 3 girls that got
awkward.
Yeah, they got our logo that we don't use. We're like, we don't use that logo. I'm sorry.
But it is a cool logo. It's just I think that we outgrew it quite quick, and we weren't sure whether like I don't know. It wrapped it up enough or whatever, but it was cool. Like they just decided to get a bit wasted one night and they're like, let's get the Souls logo. Yeah.
That'll be us. Well,
yeah.
I don't drink, so maybe I won't do that, but maybe you'll do that actually.
You don't need to be drunk.
I think if I get it, it'll be on my ass because then it'll be the arseholes. It's definitely got to be on there.
That'll be the little snippet we put at the beginning of the podcast. So we take some little clip from in there. That'll be it.
Pin it over.
Where did the impetus initially come from to start a restaurant? Were you in that business already? Had you done anything like that before?
What does impetus mean?
Yeah, what does that mean?
Where
did the idea
put me on the spot? Yeah, where did it come from?
Yeah. Well, the thing was, we actually both, Matt and I, we've been through every restaurant together. We started the Old English, and then we went to Hard Rock, and then we went to Sticks and Sushi.
Okay.
And basically, it was all that we knew. I always wanted my own business. It didn't matter what it was. And then I knew everything about this. And in the end, I was running 12 restaurants for Sticks and Sushi. And we were like, let's open our own, and that would have been Soul Steakhouse.
Did you study business or anything?
I did a little bit, but I got kicked out.
How'd you get kicked out?
I'm not the best uni student. I went to a class, lecture with 500 people, and I was a little high and drunk. And me and a mate went in our boxer shorts, a carton of beer on one shoulder, a thing of popcorn on the other. And we got kicked out pretty quick. And then I got a letter after 6 months saying I'm not welcome back at that university. So I moved on.
Interesting.
But
is that when you went to go travel the world?
And then, then I left, and then I helped set up a dive business. So I was a dive instructor, and he wanted to set it up. So I helped him do that. And I got a % of his business because it grew quick.
Okay.
So I took that money, and then I just went traveling for 2 years around the world. Surfing, chilling, spent all the money, and then I had to start working again.
Yeah.
So, but I always wanted to do something, and I learned everything I could from Sticks and Sushi. It's the best company around, and we sort of stole their ideas and morals and brought it into ours and implemented that into Souls, and it's a perfect model. I learned everything there.
So, when you said that you saw a gap in the market in Copenhagen, was that? What was the gap in the market? Because you also said that
I'd gone
wanted
home
to go vegan because of a different reason. That wasn't necessarily the gap you saw.
No, it was sort of all entwined, actually. I also went home, and after surfing, I went up to this place, and there was just a line down the street, and I was like, oh, let's go and see what it was. And it was a salad bar. I was like, a freaking salad bar? Australians don't eat salad bar. So I went and had a look, and it was vegetarian. It wasn't vegan. But it was amazing, like the stuff they were doing with tofu. And I was like, holy shit, this is pretty good. And that woke me up, and I noticed all around town there were these vegetarian places that were just killing it. They had lineups. So then actually the first idea was after that, when we came back and steakhouse, and then we were like, let's go vegetarian. I already had that idea, like there's definitely a business model here. But I originally thought of it as more of a buffet where you come and take your own stuff.
Okay.
But I'm super glad we didn't do that. I don't think Danes are too into the buffet. It's not healthy. It really wouldn't have matched. And then we just decided to make it cafe restaurant. And in the beginning, the kitchen was actually out the front where we made the salads in front of people, and it was that style. But as we grew, the concept changed and went from cafe to more restaurant.
It also got a bit too busy for it to stay all out in the front.
Yeah.
You know?
It's also a bad thing to grow too quick. I think we got so busy really quick that we had to take the quality down. And that wasn't necessarily a good thing because we couldn't keep up. So we had to start preparing everything ahead of time and things like this. And it's only been recently we learned we have to go back to the old way and just have more staff and keep it more fresh. But getting so busy so quick, we didn't know what to do. And it made it quite difficult, actually.
This might be a bit of a specific question, but we're a bit of a business podcast. For initially when opening the restaurant, where does the money for that kind of come from? Is that self-funded? Did you find investors?
Yeah, we've done it ourselves the whole time. So when I was at Sticks and Sushi, I was busting my balls and I did jobs on the side in different bars and things like that so I could save as much as I can. So this wasn't just like a year plan. This was years of going, I'm going to open something. And a year before that, I nearly opened a cocktail bar. And that didn't work. That fell through. So I saved up more money, and then we had enough for a restaurant. But we only had 800,000, and we bought our place actually in Oosterbro for 650, and then we had 150 left to do the interior and all these sort of things. But we were planning for a long time. We didn't want investors. We wanted to do it ourselves and do it the hard way.
That's really cool.
But we get to keep it all ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
And poor Jen had to design the restaurant with basically a 0 krona budget. We had to borrow wood from places and basically build the whole restaurant out of those pallets, which they put the pant in over here, the empty bottles.
Yeah.
And then our whole restaurant is built out of that, so it cost us nothing. It just was our time to put it up.
Well, it was a happy accident, really, because when you're given like basically nothing to work with, as in budget wise, you have to improvise, and that's when you start reusing things, and and it worked so well at the end.
To innovate and come up with solutions that weren't previously even thought of. That,
and then also like, I mean, obviously the vegan lifestyle goes hand in hand with a more sustainable future,
sure.
And then if the design can reflect that out as well, which it now. I mean, 90% does. Yeah. So that was, it was a happy accident.
The problem is it falls apart. Nothing was ever done properly.
True. Right.
So everything's always falling apart, and we've constantly been fixing and redoing.
Right.
And it's definitely not a way I would recommend, but in the beginning when you have no choice.
Gotta figure it out.
I mean, even when we bought the second restaurant, we barely had money, so Jen got sticks and hung them up on a roof, and people call it design. And
we reused.
They look cool.
I know the sticks you're talking about.
Yeah.
And we got the sticks on the wall in a frame. And the funny thing is, every time our builder comes in to paint, like a branch should follow each way, and he puts them upside down, and it doesn't make sense, and the whole place just looks.
So he basically takes them down to paint the wall and puts them back up in a different order.
Okay.
So it doesn't look like a branch anymore. It just looks, I don't know what it looks like, but it doesn't make any sense. Like you can see what it looks like before you take it down. But I don't know. I think he's got like art dyslexia or something.
And for our American listeners, we're talking in kroner here when you guys say 650,000.
Exactly.
So that nobody thinks like, what the fuck are they talking about?
That's $135,000-$140,000, maybe a bit more or something like that. So that's super cheap
for starting a restaurant.
To buy a restaurant and
very cheap.
Like fix it up and all that sort of thing. But
also the location isn't super central, so obviously it's a bit cheaper to buy in Oosterbro.
We got a deal again. Everyone told us don't buy there. Like this place, you're not going to make money. Everybody's failed, and we're like, this is gold. Like we've got an outdoor area. It's just up to us to make it work. But it was super scary. We were like, if we can make it here, we're going to make it anyway. So that was the good thing, but it's a tough area. That's for sure.
I remember when me and my girlfriend moved here, the first thing we did, because we had just gone vegan before we moved to Copenhagen, and the first thing we did was vegan restaurants. Copenhagen, Souls was one of them, and didn't matter where it was. like we were gonna go.
Yeah, exactly. You want
And
to travel.
So we went to it, and it was great. And so the location didn't deter us. I mean, I'm only one person, but
Yeah.
I think that's maybe an interesting thing to talk about a little bit more is this word vegan. I think it's something that we've talked a lot about when we've been thinking of how to do videos. And how do you talk about this subject that can kind of turn a lot of people off just from hearing the word vegan, and it has so many connotations? Is that something that you've struggled with, or has it been something that you've used as an advantage?
We've thought about it a lot. I mean, it's changed in the last, I'd say even 6 months. Before that, we didn't use the word vegan ever. And a lot of vegans,
a lot.
a lot of
We thought it
vegans didn't
sounded a
like
bit-
us for that though.
Yeah, I remember
because
when
we
we
didn't
first
use
met,
it.
that's kind of what you were saying. Like,
Yeah.
vegans don't really like us, and we
No.
don't use the word vegan.
Exactly, we don't promote
But we want to
it
like
and-
talk about it somehow.
We had this motto from the beginning, like, you got to lose the battle to win the war. And we actually had fish and chicken on our menu for the first month. And that was part of that motto. We just wanted to get people in. So our menu was vegan, but you could always add in chicken and fish. And a lot of people didn't know that. But we just wanted to somehow get people there, because 4 years ago, vegan, they're like, hell no, we're not
It
coming
was too
near your
scary
place.
for people. It really was.
Super scary.
What does that mean? Lose the battle to win the war?
Like, we got to get the
Sacrifices.
people in, yeah. So we got to sacrifice having a bit of chicken on our menu.
I see.
But they come in, they know that we have a good menu, and then they're going to come back. And then they're going to come back.
Right.
We also used to have milk on the menu, and I think we kept it for a year. But then we had enough loyal customers, we got rid of the milk.
They stayed.
And they came in and they're like, you know what, we'll give it a try.
Yeah.
And now they're here forever, you know. But if we didn't have the milk in the beginning, they wouldn't have come in.
Right.
Definitely not.
Yeah, there's a vegan. Oh, there's a bakery called Bake My Day. Have you heard of them?
Yeah, I have.
They
yeah.
they do like half their stuff is vegan, half their stuff isn't vegan. And we were talking with the owner, and she was saying that, like, I'm vegan and I want to make all of it vegan, but it's like a way, exactly what you're saying, to get people to come in and just think, oh, these are great cupcakes, and then slowly get rid of all the non-vegan ones and just have them all be vegan. But it's like a way, it's like a place to start.
Definitely.
I
And
think-
it's the only way.
I think that, like, it might not be the best analogy, but I remember something about Pink, the artist. When she first started off, she did a whole bunch of shit she didn't like doing before she could turn and actually be herself.
Right.
Like, she had to get a following and some sort of fan base
Yeah.
and to find her own feet, really. And I think it's kind of similar at Souls.
Yeah.
Like, we just had to get that following, and then obviously it was a bit more strategic.
Definitely.
Mm.
But the word vegan,
It has
there's
to
that
change now.
stereotype. Everyone thinks they're weird and hippie and psychedelic, and you'll see our place, it's normal and cool, and
Yeah.
we promote it that it's just normal food.
Mm.
And we actually got a lot of meat eaters come in because they didn't realize. And then they find out it's vegan. And
Yeah,
then we'd usually tell them it's all free if you don't like it, and they always stay and try it, and they love it.
Has anyone ever
Yeah,
gone
I
like,
was
I
gonna
want my
ask,
money back?
has anyone ever
I've done it, I reckon, to probably 30 people, and one guy did. And he smashed it. He finished it. But when I asked him, was it good? He was like, eh. And I knew he liked it, but he was from Jutland. He was a farmer.
Yeah.
And he just didn't want to admit that it was
What a
great. And I was like, you
piece
know
of
what?
shit.
It's on us. Like, you're the first ever, so fine. It's all good. But everyone else is usually like, yeah. And then they give you a big tip because they're like, this was really, really good.
Because you ultimately want to just make good food, not like, oh, this is good for vegan food.
Yeah, exactly.
It should be good regardless.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
But we use the word plant-based, but now in the last 6 months, it's not scary anymore. You can use the word vegan and people are like, oh, that's cool. You're doing the right thing. Like, it's really starting to change.
Yeah.
And I mean, we even did a survey not long ago. And for the last years, the reason everybody went vegan was for the environment.
Yeah.
No one wanted to, they didn't care about the animals, and they're like, don't push that on us. But this was the first year ever that people like, why is it always about the environment? Like, it should be about the animals.
I think people got a bit sick of hearing the sustainable story, or just the kind of like the end of the world feeling. So it seemed one of the questions in this survey was like, why would you go vegan or stay vegan?
Yeah.
And then I think obviously the choices were environment or health or for the animals, and the majority chose for the animals.
That's
which was a
interesting.
surprising
Yeah.
turn.
So it's just to say, like, it's changing. You know, people's way of thinking's changing with the animals, and just the word vegan, and it's changed a lot.
It's definitely
A
changing.
lot.
Mm.
I mean, I went vegan 100% for the environment. I
Yeah.
didn't think twice about the animals at all.
Mm.
I also, like you, watched Cowspiracy, and was like, I think I watched it 3 times before it actually like stuck. But I was like, there's something so like important about this that I needed to watch it again. And then I watched it one more time, and it took like I think 6 months before I actually decided to, okay, we're gonna try and go vegan. Because my girlfriend had been vegetarian for like the past like 12 years of her life. But for no real reason. It wasn't like an ethical thing. And so for her, it was also like she had absolutely no problem with people eating meat or dairy or eggs or anything like that. And then seeing some of those documentaries and hearing about the impact it had on the environment was really what got us like, wow, we can actually kind of do something. It's often that you hear all these terrible things and it feels very like, well, I can't do anything about it. And so it feels like kind of hopeless, but this is something that you could actually take action on.
Yeah.
You could be like an everyday hero, right?
Yeah. But then the weird thing for me was that then once you're kind of in that world and you start, okay, well, what's out there? What can I eat? And you just get more information about like what it means to be vegan. And then you start learning about the animals. And that's for me what is the big thing now. The ethical side of things, the moral side of things. And that's definitely what keeps me vegan and not just vegetarian or not just vegan some of the time. It's like, that's to me what really sticks is like watching Earthlings and seeing the footage that comes
I
out
can't
all
finish
the
Did
time.
you get through it?
I've seen it 3 times. Yeah,
I
because I like
can't.
40
I
minutes
can't.
in, like
I-
tears. I'm like, Jesus, I'm
Yeah,
done.
exactly that.
I'm
It's-
out of
No,
this.
no, I can't.
you
No.
need to like, I find that with a lot of things, it's like it's easy to learn something and feel super passionate about it in the moment and feel like, wow, I need to do something about this, or having some kind of revelation about how your mood works. Like if you're someone who suffers from anxiety or depression, you read a book about, well, actually exercise has a massive effect on how you feel. And you're like, wow, I hadn't thought about that before. Actually, that makes sense. I can kind of see that. And you start working out more. And then slowly you kind of forget about that. And it's like you go back to your old ways. Then you need to like read something new about the same thing.
For sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you have to keep working on it and keep learning. And I find the same thing with like something like veganism, that you have to keep exposing yourself to the issues, because they're not just gone because you're not contributing directly in that sense, at least anymore. There's still plenty of things you can still do to improve your own lifestyle. And I've heard from a lot of people that it's like just recently my brother, who is vegan as well, was like, I'm kind of struggling to remember why I am vegan. I'm like, well, let's talk about it. He's like, oh yeah, like I forgot about. It's not like you forget, but it suddenly kind of gets pushed back a little bit because you start to have other priorities.
It's like you need reassurance or reinforcement
Yeah.
once in a while to remember why you do it or try to or whatever.
But I think that it is interesting that you were saying that you're finding in the surveys that people are now saying for the animals, whereas before it was overwhelmingly for the environment. Because I can directly see that in myself. That's how I got into it. And now that's what's definitely keeping me is the animals.
Yeah, it's interesting that it's shifting.
Yeah. The weird thing, I think, I don't know, when I went vegan, it opened me up to everything, like sexism and just equality across the whole board. I was like, geez, there's so much shit that's not fair, and there's so much bullshit information out there about protein, and like it just woke me up to so many different things. I was like, wow, like I was pretty closed up before that, you know, but just seeing these movies and that, I was like, okay. And then I thought about animals more, and then I started to think about male and female and how different people are treated, you know, in the work environment. And it just opened up a lot of different doors, because
I want to raise.
I think you become more compassionate. The empathy grows.
I agree.
Like that really starts to come out in you, and you start to think about everything. It's I don't know if that's for everyone, but that's how it went for me. It was strange.
Specifically the part about there's so much bullshit information out there for me was something that was like, well, if this can be something that I literally didn't know anything about, and I would say I'm not like the most knowledgeable person in the world at all, but something that big in terms of how significant an impact our food choices has on the environment, or how animals are raised and used in that industry, and having literally no idea if that's possible. Like, what else don't I know, or what else am I not aware of? And just thinking twice about like almost everything. And like 90% of it, you think about it twice. You're like, okay, no, I do know enough about this. But then you'd be like, there's other things like, well, you were mentioning like, what do you feed your dog?
Yeah, what do you feed your dog?
And well, yeah, so this is a he eats.
I want to know.
No, he eats meat, and it's but it's something that is also not as clear in my head about what is healthy for him to eat. I mean, Taylor and I have talked about this like multiple times in the podcast before, and it's like, I mean, we could really get into this. And
but is there any information? Like,
it's very early days, in the same way that people used to be like, veganism, like that's child abuse if you're having a vegan child or something. It's the same. It's very intense with animals, right. Especially like people think of pets, they think of dogs and cats, and just between dogs and cats, the difference between what a cat needs and a dog needs is massively different. Right. As in, a cat, in a lot of, I'm not an expert at all in this, from what I understand, a cat has to have meat, protein in their diet in order to survive, whereas a dog doesn't necessarily need that. But their whole systems are definitely designed differently than our systems are, and would need it in a different way than we would. And I think from what I've understood, to me, honestly, I would want to make him vegan. But I'm not the only one who owns him. We're a couple, and I think there's a lot of fear of like this. It's almost like a motherly instinct that I can empathize with, of like wanting the best for your baby. I know he's a dog, but he was like, he's a baby, special little. And so there is this feeling of like, I don't want him to not be getting what he needs, and that it's not our. It's one thing to be aware of your own body, and even your actual, like our actual son is vegan.
So Oscar's vegan, but the dog's not.
Because the research definitely is not as strong for dogs as it is for humans. I mean, it's absolutely 100% totally healthy for a human to be vegan in all stages of life, including pregnancy and being a newborn. Yeah, like that's proven.
But that's still tough, right? Were you questioning that in the beginning?
Was I questioning that in the beginning? No, not at that point, because I had done enough research before we like were even considering having a baby. Yeah. So I knew about those things then, and had been exposed to it before. But
I think it's quite common now.
It is quite common.
It's easy now. You can see, right? Like Neo Hippie and Mia Summer and these sort of people that are in the vegan community, and you see them and you're like, it is bullshit that you can't do it. Like, they got good, healthy kids and everybody's fine. So
who are they?
The two pretty big food bloggers through Denmark, and one called Neo Hippie. She follow her on Instagram. She shares her life. They live further south of Copenhagen, and they show their life about recycling clothes and how their kids are perfectly healthy on a vegan diet and things like that. And it wakes you up. You're like, it can be done. Like I can see somebody doing it. You feel a little bit better when you can actually see someone. Otherwise, you question it.
It does. Yeah. It's something that allows you to just open your mind a little bit to, it's possible in this situation. Maybe it's actually possible outside of just this one isolated incident of like someone happens to be healthy as well as being vegan. I think part of the issue is that there is a lot of like anecdotal examples out there. Like someone else could say, well, I know this one family who had a vegan child and that child ended up dying. That's also true, and it might also have been because of their diet, but you don't know exactly what the specifics of that situation was.
Depends what you feed them on a vegan diet, or depends what you feed them on a meat diet. They could still die.
I think it's hard to know what's true though as well.
Well, that's why I think it's so important that there are scientific studies out there that you can look at and that you can refer to, and not just look at people's specific example, because it's you don't know the full story, even if it's for your side or against your side, because then there's also like, I think another negative that now that we're talking about like vegan and how sometimes that brings connotations with it, is like a lot of vegans are also anti-vaccine. Have you come across that?
Really? No.
Well, I've heard it a lot.
It's
but-
definitely a
about?
correlation. I wouldn't say that vegans are in general anti-vaccine, but if you look at who is anti-vaccine out there, a lot of them are vegan. It's a small amount of people just to begin with.
Why is
But
that?
I think because vaccines aren't vegan.
Oh.
And so they look for reasons to make it bad so that they don't have to engage in something that's not vegan. As in, the vaccine itself
It's
contains
also the
animal
bullshit
products.
part, though, right? Like, how do you know what's bullshit and what's not? There's so many different reports, and I think vaccines we definitely should be, but I mean, I don't know everything.
No, and
Like,
even if
there's
you
so
look
much
at the reports,
information.
we've done it a couple times where you open up a report and you try to read it, and it's just written in this language that there's
Totally
so many.
misleading.
Even after you read the report, you're like,
Wait,
I
what?
don't fucking know. Like, I need someone to like break this down for me, or like there's
Yeah.
meta-analyses, which is analyses of analyses.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Right, and you're just like go down this whole.
Analysis.
So I think there is an element of trusting certain people, I guess, to read that information and they give it to you. But there is always going to be an element of
Yeah,
you
definitely.
don't know. There's so much information out
And
there.
sometimes you want to believe what you want to believe.
exactly.
So then you'll find
Exactly.
like the sources to
Sure.
back that up.
Well, you
Right.
can't just listen to individual people. It's you gotta like.
That's
have
like the scientific
established-
consensus,
Yeah.
kind of, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You need to follow.
Like a good example would be the whole B12 question, which is it's true. Like someone could say, on a vegan diet, it's difficult to obtain, if not impossible, to naturally obtain vitamin B12. You need to supplement it, and that's a so-called negative of the vegan diet. You need to be aware of that when you're eating vegan.
Haven't they recently proven that was bullshit?
Well,
in the
exactly,
last
because
few
it's
months or something?
also hard to get B12 on a non-vegan diet, and that the levels of B12 deficiencies are pretty much equal between vegans and non-vegans, and so that suddenly completely changes that information.
Yeah.
And you should supplement it both
Either
ways.
way.
But if you just state it in that first way,
Yeah,
it sounds like it's specifically but it's not technically wrong.
Yeah.
And you could write that in a study.
Was it that they're supplementing B12 to animals anyways, which then
Yeah.
we digest if we eat animals?
Because the
so either
animals
way,
aren't
it's
getting it
supplemented
naturally
either
anymore.
to the
Yeah.
animal or to ourselves.
So we're
Is that the
everyone.
That's
yeah.
smart.
yeah.
The meat industry is putting it in the right way, right?
Yeah. But it shows you how it can be so difficult as just an average consumer who's not an expert in scientific studies to be consuming news headlines and even the titles of actual scientific studies and still not knowing exactly what's going on, because you can choose your wording in
Yeah.
a way that like you need literally the whole picture in order to have accurate information, and like who has time to do that?
Yeah. And you learn new stuff. Like we just went to this fashion show to try to acquire some new clients and stuff. And like every other brand is sustainable. And we're like, oh, that's really
Amazing.
cool. Like all these sustainable brands, organic cotton. And then we talked to this one guy and he's like, it's total bullshit. Like
You
they're
can
just
get a
throwing
sustainable stamp by doing like this one thing.
Yeah,
That's so
exactly.
easy to
That's
do.
crazy.
right. And it's just kind of
It's
this
like a
greenwashing
marketing-
of the industry,
yeah.
right? And then he was
Like-
so like, what about the water that you use? How much water do you use? How do you, even things like how much do you pay your workers? Where is your clothes coming from? All these things that have nothing to do with like sustainability. And then we're like, oh fuck, we just talked to all these these people that were like, oh, really cool that you're sustainable and organic and all these things,
Bullshit.
But like,
The thing with vegan though is whether it's healthy or not healthy, we're killing animals. They're not treated right. Like there's just an argument that people can't have anymore. It's like, hey, they're treated poorly. They're treated badly. That we have to do something about it. Fair enough, you want to be healthy in that, but just cut the meat out a few days a week or whatever.
Yeah.
There's always an argument for something, but we need to do what's right. I think that's what it comes down to with being vegan or not. If
yeah,
you
I
do
was
what's
gonna say
right.
the same, that like you can read whatever information's out there and not know what's true, but intuitively you can kind of feel that, yeah, you don't want to hurt something in the process, right?
Yeah, if it's not necessary, which I think is something that is widely accepted, that you can be healthy on a vegan diet.
Yeah,
That's
if
not
you know what
something
you're
that's
doing,
confusing
you can.
anymore. And so there might be disputes about, well, what's the actual environmental impact and how significant is that actually, or what's the health argument, is that actually as important as the vegan movement is saying it is. But then there's that, like you said, the animals dying they're dying, and that's pretty obvious to see that that's a negative thing, at least from their perspective. And if it's not necessary on just that one point, it suddenly becomes difficult to have a justification for not doing something about it. I think that's kind of what is happening in general, and people are starting to see that a little bit more.
Maybe that's why it's shifting from the environmental reasons to more the animal, because people don't know what to believe, sort of.
Yeah. Falling back on something just more like, well, what do I feel?
Exactly. More emotional.
Yeah, I think so.
Although I struggle sometimes because I don't know if I necessarily have problems with like homesteads where people have chickens or something, or if even with hunting, I don't think I actually have a huge problem with it. I think for me it lies more specifically with factory farming and things. Yeah. So I also like when you say, just cut it out a couple times a week is something I really agree with, because it's like, it's crazy that people eat meat every single day. That to me is something, and like how cheap it is when you go to the grocery store and everything. I think those are the things that kind of affect me. Right, exactly. That you can get like 2 pounds of chicken, but I'm like, how the fuck did you? Yeah. How's that even possible? Like, you got to grow these chickens, you got to butcher them, you got to break them down, you got to package them, and then they're sold for like pennies. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And I think with anything, it's just this idea of like limiting your intake. It's not a huge thing to do. Or even like there's this German word, the Sonntagsbraten, which is like the Sunday roast, which comes from like, you'd have meat on a Sunday is a massive deal, right? Yeah. You would have killed an animal or got it from your cousin or something, brought it in, like the whole family comes. It's this big event.
Well, it's lost that a long time ago. Now it's become like an everyday item, and
that if it's almost not on your plate, it's like it's not even a meal.
Exactly.
It's always like
incomplete or something.
What are we having for dinner? Like steak, chicken, salmon. You're not like, there's mashed potato and broccoli and a little bit of beef. As a kid, it was always like, what's for dinner, Mom? Mom, meatloaf. Meatloaf, Mom.
Yeah.
But going back a little bit in terms of, so when you guys first started the restaurant, you had talked a little bit that you guys weren't accepted by the vegan community.
It took a while, yeah. I think in the beginning...
Did it come from that, or did it come from...
I think a little bit in the beginning we had meat on the menu. So there was people were pushing us to get the meat off, which we actually got, I think it was a month before we took it off. We had a big catering for 60 people that rented out the whole place. Yeah. And they wanted us to do a roast chicken. And it was tough because we're like, we've got no money. We're down to 11,000 in the bank, actually.
That's crazy.
And it was really tough. Yeah. And, there was me, Jen, and Matt were like, no one's getting paid. No one's getting anything. We just got to get through this time. Yeah. But me and Matt went to buy the chicken at Inco. And we had to go into the meat section. And we were just like, fuck this. Let's never do this again. This is disgusting. Just looking at the meat in there. And then that was the last time we ever had meat on our menu. We're like, it's off. We'll never do this. We won't sacrifice it for money. Yeah. Because that was the whole reason we were doing this anyway. Yeah. We're like, nah. If we go down with having nothing. But we did that. But then I think with the vegan community in the beginning, they didn't like that we didn't push vegan. They wanted us to be like, go vegan and put signs up and on the menu and all this. And we didn't push that because, again, we had a different plan. And we weren't trying to get the vegans in because they already knew where to go and what to eat. We wanted to get the meat eaters in. And as soon as we had that vegan sign out there was no chance they would even look at us.
Not 4 years ago, no.
Not 4 years ago. But yeah, that has changed, definitely. But it's, I think the vegan community realizes why we've done things now. Yeah. We talk to them a lot and they've seen our competitors come and go and how it hasn't worked. And they've realized that what we've done is it's a really smart plan. And a lot of people are doing that in their own lives, I think, to even get their own family into it. They're careful how they do it. And it's not like go vegan. It's like, hey, Dad, just don't eat meat once a week. And people are getting that concept. And it's the only way. If you shove something down people's throat, they don't do it. Like if you did that to me, I'm like, nah, don't tell me what to do.
You just have a aversive reaction right away. Yeah.
I think people want to learn on their own. Yeah. Like they don't want to be told what to do. I know I hate it.
I think that's huge. Yeah. What made you stay and work if you're not getting paid? What's
in the
sort of fire behind that.
Now.
Yeah, obviously.
Obviously
I hope
not
so.
enough. All this sexism talk before. Well, I believed in the concept, or the future plan of it anyway.
Yeah.
And of course, I mean, it has the fact that Jason's my boyfriend and Matt's a friend had a lot to do with it as well. You know, I wanted them to succeed, and it's fine that I didn't get paid in the beginning. I knew it was coming at some point. But yeah, it was definitely also for what the restaurant was about, and I wanted it to succeed. So yeah.
Remember our first day when we earned 4,000?
We were running around like headless chickens. Yeah, vegan headless chickens. But
2 birds with 1 scone.
yeah.
Oh gosh.
We I think it was like 2 or 3 hours. We actually had our first like brunch rush or something, and we were sweating, running.
It's
we're
gotta
like,
be so
"Yes,
crazy.
This is great.
Yeah.
And then I think we looked at what we made in that short amount of time, and the depression was so real. We were just like...
It was like 4 or 5 hours in the beginning. We were in the front, and we'd cook the burgers under a sandwich grill, and we were doing everything. We had no one else in the back. It was us doing everything. And we were busting our balls, and there was a lot of people, and we were running. We're like, woo, we've made it. You know, and we looked at the till, and we're like, 4,000 kroner, like $800. Just going, you're kidding me? 4,000 kroner, that's it? On our busiest day on a Saturday? Like, we're like, we screwed it, man. Like, we fucked up. Like, we need to change something quick. Yeah. And we had to adapt super quick because we just didn't have a good business. I think our prices were half of what we were at right now and all sorts. We didn't know what we were doing in the beginning. A lot
of our produce is homemade, which I think a lot of people don't know, actually. So that takes time. That was labor costs to make it, and then obviously, that all adds up. So at the end, we definitely realized that that sandwich has to be maybe 10 kroner more expensive than it is now, and so on.
And isn't that something that some people like to complain about? Is the price is higher than other places?
Definitely.
The funny thing is, even in the beginning, at these prices that we lost money, people were still like, it's expensive. Like, people will always complain it's expensive. And we put the prices up 20 kroner and they'd still complain. And now it's at the highest it's ever been, and we get no complaints.
It's
we still get a few.
A year ago, we got a lot of complaints, and that was, it's still at the same price, but our service wasn't as good.
Right.
So it's really funny. If you don't get good service and the rest with it, people are, it's expensive. But we really worked on our service, and that prices have stayed exactly the same. And now it's very, very rare that we get anybody complain. So you got to have the whole package. And to be honest, we're definitely not expensive. 95% of our product we make ourselves.
Yeah.
And in Denmark, that takes a long time.
And Danish labor costs pretty high.
Definitely. So people, they don't always see the other side, but I think it's growing, and people have got to realize why, and they've seen our competitors come and go because they were cheap, and they're always like, well, that place is cheap. Well, they only last a year.
Yeah.
I thought that was so interesting when you said that, and I had noticed it, but I hadn't thought about it that way. I'd seen so many little vegan places popping up, and I was like, oh, great.
Yeah.
And like, where is it now? It's because they weren't pricing it.
It's tough because they undercut us, and you see some of our local people or people like, it's expensive, and they go over to that cafe, but 6 months later, they're back. Because they don't have it all, or that cafe's now gone, or whatever. They don't understand in the beginning that these places are cheaper, but they can't survive off that. We have our prices where we are, because otherwise the souls will be gone. So it's a tough thing to do. It's really difficult.
I have a couple of like quick fire questions. So don't spend too long thinking about it, but there's some interesting questions. If you What are any like bad recommendations that you hear in your profession? I guess like the restaurant business.
We can give you one just this week, actually. You get a lot of false things. We had some people, I won't say who, come in and basically we're a fully booked restaurant. We have no tables available. It's a Friday night football. We sit them up on a little high table, which is for 3 people, and they're 5. And we let them sit there and tell them they need to squish in. Anyway, they start to move out in the hallway, and 2 waiters have gone up to them and said, hey guys, you need to squish in. They decided to leave, which is fair enough, because it's not comfortable, it's busy.
Mm-hmm.
And on the way out, the guy decides to say that we're racist and we wouldn't treat other white people like that. He then goes on Facebook, gets 20 of his friends, all writes negative reviews saying that we're racist. We're a fully booked restaurant, you know, and people don't get that. There's nothing that we were doing wrong. We tried to help them have a 3-seater.
Yeah.
And usually our negative things are from people that they just don't understand what's happening. And they start to make up bullshit, and then it gets worse. And that's generally where we'll get negative reviews or something like that. Somebody's in a bad mood and then they put it onto us. And we'll always try and help, and we do what we can.
Yeah.
And we'll be polite. But some people just take it a step further, and it's completely unfair, and it's tough.
Is that what you meant by your question?
No.
Oh, what was
But it's,
But it's okay now you got that out there.
well, I mean, I could have a follow-up question.
Good story.
Basically, the question was more about people who start businesses within the restaurant industry might have like tips for how to do so. What are bad recommendations that you hear within that industry that you would consider to be bad recommendations, but you hear them quite often? So like something that you think differently than the industry on average would do.
They tell us to make our dishes cheaper, I guess. That's probably...
But that's not from the industry, right?
No, that's true.
Like for us, I think maybe something would be like never do work for free. Always make sure that you get paid for it.
Yeah, definitely.
That's a big one. And for us, I would say that that's been a huge part of our success, is being willing to work with people for free in the beginning to build relationships and to show that we're actually invested in what you are doing, not just trying to make money off of you. And that's been a huge part of what separated us, at least in the beginning.
I agree. I think that's complete bullshit. Sometimes you have to work for free. You got to get your foot in, like with you guys. You did us a super good deal in the beginning just to get in, and I think you made a video for free, right?
Me too.
Yeah, you were like, just let us show you what we can do, and then we're like, these guys are good. Like, let's get them in. I think that was super smart by you guys, and I think it's definitely a good way. Sometimes you can't always do it for free, right? But you've got to get your foot in the door, and then from there you go. Definitely.
Yeah. It's like you said, when you see the opportunity and there is a purpose to it, it is like working for free or doing something for free. I think for us is the same deal.
We still do
we
it.
see potential in something.
Still do it.
Rarely, but a couple people.
We're thinking about doing it with someone who we were like, ooh, we really would like to work with that person.
Now I'm curious who that is.
Well, I'm sure you don't.
After
Talk off camera.
All right, here's another one. Do you have a favorite failure, like within starting the restaurant? Something like an experience that by failing you actually learned something that you are so grateful that you learned at that time, maybe not later, or you can interpret it however you want. Do you have a favorite failure?
I don't know. I think part of the restaurant, having no money, like it's not a failure, but having no money to build it.
Having learned how to do it.
It just worked out. Everything came, the sustainable and the look and the wood, and people loved it, and it really worked in our favor. I think if we had just had the money to do it, it definitely wouldn't have had the same feel, and we would have bought fancy stuff and whatever, but people really... They support you a little more when they're like, it is homemade and you can see these guys haven't got much. They support you a little more like, hey, they're doing it. They're doing all the hard work. So I think that worked out pretty good.
I mean, that being said, it's still good to sometimes get like quality, durable stuff that you haven't upcycled, because it does last longer than a lot of the
I just bought 2 vacuums for cheap and had to throw them both away.
So like, what's the lesser evil?
At some point you spent like 1,000 krona.
1,000 krona? Jesus.
Yeah.
What failures have we had? There's been a lot.
Well, I guess you could
answer,
say
though.
that's kind of
the one you said.
failure or whatever.
Yeah.
So
I'll stick with that one.
Okay. Do you have any unusual habits or absurd things that you love?
Unusual habits.
Jason's very twitchy. Like he's got this
that
thing.
you love?
I guess so.
You
I
don't love it?
I
don't know.
Absurd habits, but you have to love them, or?
It's basically something that you do that no one else does, but you absolutely love it.
Shit, all the bad things I do I don't love, so...
Oh, I don't know.
What do you guys got?
I was thinking, I don't know either.
It's the first time I've asked that question.
Absurd. What was the question?
Absurd things or unusual habits that you have that you love that like no one else does. I eat oats with just like regular, like with plant milk, but just like that, cold and nothing else on it.
That's tasty though.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so that's
Yeah.
not that's it. Okay.
Yeah.
Totally normal.
That's wild.
Throw a bit of fruit in there. Woo!
I said this on the last podcast as well. I'm gonna sound like a broken record.
I think it is a normal.
I get so much.
I don't like
weird-
oatmeal. I don't like it cooked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jason doesn't like avocado.
Oh.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
one of those weirdos.
That's really weird.
Yeah,
All right, we'll skip that one.
yeah.
Great.
We're not doing well here. Like, fail.
All right, let's do one more. Specifically a small purchase within the last like 6 months has most positively impacted, let's say, your business? Because normally I'd ask
Can
your
I
life.
say a chef?
Well, yeah, maybe.
I
But
think a chef.
Definitely.
We've been struggling for a long time to get a good quality chef. And just 3 months ago, we got a really good guy who's worked in a lot of Michelin restaurants. So you're actually going to see our menus completely change. The quality's going up, everything. And I think he's, hopefully he's not listening, but he's super valuable.
We don't want him to get big-headed.
So it's not that cheap, I guess, but yeah, it's definitely probably the best thing we've purchased
best
in the last 6
investment.
months. Yeah.
Maybe.
Okay.
Better said.
Yeah, we're really good in the front, but I mean, I suck in the kitchen. I'll get in there and I'll cook, but I'm not good at innovating. So we finally got someone that's great at that.
Yeah. And you guys are trying to move more into a little bit of fine dining, right?
A little more higher end,
Higher end, yeah.
March 17 in Oosterbro, the menu's completely different. Everything's gone.
Very
so
exciting.
some people are going to be unhappy, but
yeah.
once they try the new food, they'll see why. Because I was a little worried, and then when he made me the new food, because he was like, "Your food's shit," and I'm like, "Mate, you got to prove that to me first."
Yeah.
And then we had a tasting the other day, and I was like, "Our food's shit." Fair
Yeah.
enough. Like, good call, man. I get it. So it is completely changing on March 16, and then there's some big plans for the Norraport in a few more months.
Oh, that's really exciting. And you guys just won Best Vegan Restaurant, right?
Yeah.
Is that in
super
Copenhagen or Denmark or in the world?
Cool. It's in Denmark, but it's
Copenhagen.
Oh, is it Copenhagen?
Copenhagen.
Oh, yeah.
Best
sorry,
vegan
yeah,
restaurant,
yeah.
Copenhagen 2020.
2020.
Yeah.
I think we got 2018 for another one, and then this one 2020.
Yeah.
So
Sustainable
maybe we're the only
one.
ones that are still left.
No, that's not true. No, but that was by the I can't say the Vegetarian Society. They had their nominations.
Nice.
So that was where we won that one, which
That's
is cool.
gotta feel good.
It feels
Yeah,
great.
definitely.
It's
Yeah.
really nice.
It's nice when you work. Everyone always says it works so hard to get something, but it is good.
Yeah, a little bit of.
Because we work pretty hard, so to get something in the end is like sweet.
Yeah.
People are finally noticing.
Yeah.
So the next one's to get some European award, and then we'll go for the world.
Yeah.
We're not good enough right now, for sure. We're good, but we're not good enough. But in the next 6 months, definitely.
Super excited. It's
I
also
really
important,
think-
I think, to take those moments and celebrate. Because when you run a business and stuff, I think it's hard to like pick a day where you're like, we should sit down and appreciate this and be grateful for what we're doing. And to have an award like that probably makes you just be like, fuck yeah.
We still haven't. Hey, that's probably my downfall. I'm never happy enough with stuff. Things are never good enough. It's terrible. I wish I was better at it.
It's a blessing and a
But-
curse, though,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Because
for
it also
sure.
drives you forward towards the next thing.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
it's important, like Taylor said, to have like.
Yeah,
It is also good to appreciate, because otherwise, what's the point?
yeah, for
You're
sure.
constantly looking for the next thing, but you're never stopping to actually be grateful for
You
what
have
is
to enjoy the
actually
process,
happening.
yeah.
Yeah. Our goal's so big too that this is just minor. Like, we appreciate everything we get, that's for sure, every small award, but our goals are just so big that until we hit that, it's hard to take it. But me and my business partner haven't even done a trip together or really celebrated in the 4 years that we've been together. So we have to make time. It's super important that we do it.
What
What's
are your
the
goals?
goal? Yeah.
It was 10 restaurants in the beginning. It was to have 10 restaurants in Copenhagen, and it was basically to make Denmark great again, I guess.
No, don't use that. Please don't use that.
It was to show
This is why I do the branding and you don't.
we wanted to support Denmark and be like, hey, let's make Denmark famous for vegan food. That was part of the goal. Have 10 restaurants here and make everyone around the world like, hey, go to Denmark. They've got really good vegan food. But it's changed recently. We've figured out that we can't have too many of the same concept. It's just not big enough here yet. So the next plan is to get international, but either way, it's still, I think 10 restaurants is, I think, when we'll be like, cool, we reach that goal. What's the next? But I know myself, as soon as I hit one goal, I'm like, let's make this 100. Let's make it. Like, I know it'll be 100 next.
But
you have
I
a
think
time frame
also-
for that? Sorry.
No, you go.
We should be a lot further along. We were hoping to be around 4 restaurants by now.
Yeah.
So we're a little way behind. We've had a tough year. So we're definitely another year behind, but I'd say in the next 3 or 4 years, you'll see quite a few more souls. We also did it ourselves. We've had so many investors want to come in and offer us a lot of money, actually. But we feel like quality will go down. We won't have the same control. And we decided to do it the hard way and do it ourselves and not... If an investor comes in, it's not about the money. It's about their experience and their know-how and how they could grow us to another 20 restaurants and keep the quality and things like that. Yeah, that's the right investor. But the money, this thing has never been about money. So it's about getting a good product out there.
But it's also the other goal of just showing people that vegan food doesn't have to be boring.
Definitely.
Like that's this kind of undercurrent all along is just being to keep it exciting and to focus on what we add rather than take away. And
well, you guys are definitely doing that.
Cheers.
Cool.
We're trying to just convert people because there is a lot of bad vegan food and boring vegan food.
True.
You know, we want to be like, come to Souls and you get good food 1 or 2 nights a week and then you do whatever else. But it's definitely working. But again, doing it ourselves, it's super hard, super difficult. The process is a lot slower, but hopefully it'll turn out better in the long run.
Yeah, and then you own everything.
And then we own everything, so we can do even more things then.
More risk, more reward,
We're running out of time.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
It has been such a pleasure to have you guys on. Do you guys want to quickly just let our viewers know where they can find out more about Souls? What's your website? Where do you direct people? You can mention all of them now.
We'll also put them in the
description.
You can find us on www.soulscph.dk. That's our website. Or on Instagram, we're @soulscph. Or just call. I do not know our number.
What's your personal number?
The best thing is, me and Matt, I work every single day and Matt most days as well. I'm on 6 days a week. Come down, just talk to us.
Awesome.
That's
It's
the best
best
thing.
to definitely come down. Like it's so much better when you can actually see us in person.
Yeah. Find out that you're not racist.
Yeah, exactly.
We're actually
that would
okay
be nice.
people.
Yeah.
We're
Make
pretty
Denmark
friendly.
great again.
Yeah, exactly.
Final thing, what is your favorite current menu item?
Oh, can I say something off the new menu?
Yeah, do it.
Sure, yeah, let's do that.
There's this delicious tahini dressing. I hate eggplant, but it's called eggplant. But the tahini dressing is
Stay
great.
tuned for the tahini dressing.
When's the sushi coming? Is that still coming?
I was hoping you wouldn't ask that.
Oh, cut it out. We'll cut it out.
We'll do another podcast later and we can talk about sushi. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on.
Thank you
Cheers, guys.
for having us.
Have a good one.
We'll see you next time on the Burning Boat Show.